From the moment Pat Sajak first stepped onto the Wheel of Fortune set in December 1981, viewers at home knew they were witnessing something special. His warm smile, gentle humor, and uncanny knack for putting contestants at ease turned a modest game show into an American institution. For more than 4 decades, he mastered the art of spinning letters and spinning great television, becoming as familiar in living rooms as family dinners and Sunday morning coffee. Yet now, after an astonishing run that few thought would ever end, Pat Sajak has made a startling confession. The real reason he decided to retire isn't the bright lights or the record ratings. It's a heartbreaking personal struggle that has remained hidden off camera for years. For most of his career, Sajak deflected headlines about potential health scares or family drama with a joke or a quick quip. "I don't mind losing my hair," he once joked, "as long as I don't lose my balance on the wheel." Behind the laughter, however, lay a quieter turmoil. Sajak's beloved wife, Leslie Brown Sajak, diagnosed 2 years ago with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Friends close to the couple reveal that Leslie first began experiencing subtle memory lapses in 2021, forgetting where she'd parked the car, struggling to find familiar words, even as Pat continued taping multiple episodes each week. At first, they chalked it up to stress. Sajak was hosting live shows, traveling for charity appearances, and juggling the demands of fatherhood. But when MRI scans confirmed the unthinkable diagnosis, all their plans changed overnight. The decision to step away from the show he helped build was agonizing. Wheel of Fortune is more than just a job for Sajak. It's been his second home, his creative outlet, and a source of joy shared with millions. He didn't retire because he wanted to, he retired because he had to. Sources say that when Leslie's condition crossed a critical threshold, when she began wandering out of doors at dawn and mistook familiar faces for strangers, Pat realized he could no longer split his time between studio lights and hospital corridors. He told producers, "I'll walk away from anything," one insider recalls, but not from her, contrasting his on-air persona, effortlessly guiding contestants through ROW and STO. With the new role he assumed at home reveals the depth of Sajak's devotion. Longtime crew members remember moments when he lingered after wrap to check on Leslie via video call, his voice mirroring the same kindness he showed contestants. "Give me a minute," he'd say, offering a gentle grin before slipping off set to answer her questions. "Where's my sweater?" or "What day is today?" These small, tender exchanges once went unnoticed by viewers, but now stand out as the true measure of his commitment. Pat and Leslie first met in 1979 when he was a nascent broadcaster in Los Angeles and she worked behind the scenes as an NBC page. Their chemistry was instant. She challenged him, teased him, and grounded him when national television fame threatened to barrel him into ego. When Wheel of Fortune seized networks from NBC to syndication in 1983, Pat asked Leslie to join him on the road, promising that family would always come first. Through Emmy nominations, ratings wars with rival shows, and that unforgettable night in 1992 when the show recorded its highest viewership ever, Leslie remained the compass guiding Sajak's decisions. In recent months, as scripts piled up and production windows tightened, Pat began phasing out his on-screen appearances, transitioning many of his voiceovers to remote sessions from his home office. At first, the public saw only the trophy wife cameo and brief mentions of taking time for family health matters. But behind those announcements lay more: daily therapy appointments, cognitive exercises, and long evenings peppered with memory care activities. Insiders say Leslie responds best when Pat reads aloud letters spun on the wheel. Each solved puzzle a small victory in preserving her fragmented recollections. The sadness of this choice runs deeper because Pat believed he and Leslie had more time together before the disease took hold. In interviews, he's often spoken about his dream retirement, traveling the country in an RV with Leslie by his side, visiting grandchildren, and rediscovering crossroads diners. Instead, he traded that vision for midnight phone calls to 24-hour care lines, frantic 2-hour drives to source experimental drugs, and the heartbreak of watching his life partner forget the punchlines they once shared. "It's cruel," a close friend said, because Pat gave the world laughter, but now his most important role is reminding the love of his life who he is every single day. Yet even in this struggle, Sajak's trademark grace shines through. He's transformed their challenge into a mission. Partnering with Alzheimer's research foundations, funding local support groups, and dedicating a portion of his retirement packages to families facing similar battles. Plans are in motion for a documentary series that traces Leslie's journey, with Pat as both narrator and caregiver, a testament to devotion beyond the glitz of TV studios. For fans who grew up watching him coax contestants into solving puzzles, this new chapter reveals a man who read the greatest riddle of all, the puzzle of the human heart, and chose love over applause. As audiences grapple with the revelation, one thing becomes clear. Sajak's retirement isn't an end, but a beginning. A beginning of a very different spin, played out in living rooms rather than sound stages, where the stakes are far higher and the rewards immeasurable. And though the wheel has stopped turning for now, viewers can be certain that Sajak's most profound performance has only just begun. As word of Pat Sajak's retirement spread, waves of emotion rippled through the Wheel of Fortune family and its devoted audience. Vanna White, whose fingertips had traced letters beside him for 4 decades, shared her own gut-wrenching response in an exclusive interview. "Pat taught me more than how to reveal a letter. He taught me about partnership and heart. Losing him from the set feels like losing an old friend." In the production behind the scenes, executives held crisis meetings to ensure the show's legacy would continue seamlessly. They tapped beloved spin doctors, quarterly guest hosts, and former contestants to audition in secret, all the while preserving Pat's farewell as a sacred moment. Promotional teasers promised a season of gratitude, starring clips of Sajak's warmest interactions, offering tissues to teary contestants, bantering with Vanna over near-miss puzzles, and delivering late-night pep talks to nervous newcomers. Even as plans to spin the show's format emerged, one truth held firm: Pat's final episodes would carry historic weight. Transitioning from a host who embodied continuity to a team of temporary MCs presented unique challenges. Producers considered autopilots, pre-recorded voice-overs featuring Pat's signature chuckle, but ultimately concluded that authenticity demanded live presence. Instead, they scheduled week-long hosting stints by Ryan Seacrest, Kelly Ripa, and Terry Crews, each selected for charisma that could honor the show's playful spirit. Backstage, Seacrest rehearsed his timing, adjusting every syllable of "spin that wheel" to match Pat's cadence. Ripa studied archival footage of late-night micro-expressions, Pat's subtle nods, the way he leaned forward to encourage a contestant. Even so, each fill-in host described entering the studio as standing in a cathedral of television history, acutely aware that every audience member would be comparing them to the master. In the immediate aftermath, ratings held remarkably steady, a testament to both the show's loyal fan base and the emotional gravity of a transitional season. Nielsen reports indicated only a minor dip. Viewership hovered at pre-announcement levels, suggesting that fans tuned in for more than wheel turns. They watched to honor a retirement they'd long dreaded. Social sentiment on Twitter and Facebook exploded under hashtags like #FaithThanksPat and Fen Wheel Family, where fans posted photos of vintage game tickets, autographed promotional wheels, and mementos from tapings they'd attended with grandparents and children. For many, Wheel of Fortune was a multi-generational ritual, and Pat's decision felt deeply personal. Grandparents who taught grandchildren to solve puzzles now felt the need to explain Alzheimer's and caregiving, using his own words on courage and kindness as teaching tools. Behind the scenes, Pat orchestrated a series of surprise moments for his last shows. In one tearful finale, a contestant recovering from the same early-onset Alzheimer's that struck Leslie called "Wheel." In gratitude to Sajak's advocacy, the live audience rose to its feet as Pat paused mid-spin, visibly moved, before rallying behind the contestant's solution. That cameo was no accident. Insiders say Pat personally approved the segment, wanting to spotlight families grappling with the disease. Another emotional highlight featured archival footage of his late father, sprinkling childhood photos onto the set to celebrate the man who first taught him the importance of letters, language, and laughter. When the credits rolled on his final live episode, an orchestral rendition of "America the Beautiful" swelled, and Pat's signature sign-off, "Keep on Spinning," resonated like a benediction. Equally poignant was Pat's private farewell to crew members. Long after cameras stopped rolling, he paused in the control room to thank sound technicians, set designers, and writers, people who rarely appear on camera yet sustain the show's heartbeat. He handed handwritten notes to each, recalling shared jokes and on-set anecdotes, reminding them that every puzzle solved represented a collective effort. His last file on the production server, a single document named Legacy, contained bullet points on mentorship, showrunner advice, and best practices for sustaining the program's spirit without him. I leave you the wheel. Read one section, but you are the ones who make it spin. Outside the studio, charity events reflected Pat's evolving mission. A star-studded benefit hosted at the Dolby Theater featured a wheel-themed gala where attendees donated letters toward a giant philanthropic puzzle. With each $5,000 contribution, a new segment of the puzzle lit up, revealing words like HOP, MRI, and OV. Leslie, supported in a wheelchair by Pat, greeted guests with a gentle wave, embodying both grace and vulnerability. The event raised millions for Alzheimer's research and sparked news features across morning shows, spotlighting Pat's transformation from game show host into champion for caregiving families. His retirement speech, streamed online, interwove gratitude for television viewers with a rallying cry for community action. Turn your own wheel of kindness today. As Chapter 2 of his career took shape, Pat explored opportunities beyond television. He signed a contract with a major podcast network to co-host Letters from Home, a series in which he would read listener-submitted stories of love, loss, and resilience, linking each narrative to a puzzle or proverb. His light conversational tone, once reserved for studio contestants, promised to translate seamlessly into audio storytelling. Meanwhile, publishing insiders hinted at a follow-up memoir focusing solely on his caregiving journey, tentatively titled Life's Greatest Puzzle. Advance excerpts revealed candid reflections on sleepless nights at hospital beds, the terror of wandering incidents, and the bittersweet power of a single remembered name. In signing these deals, Pat signaled that, while the wheel had turned for the last time, his voice and advocacy would continue to resonate across media. In corporate boardrooms and writers' rooms alike, discussions now revolve around Pat Sajak's legacy blueprint, balancing the demands of a public platform with the imperatives of private life. Television historians predict that future retrospectives will not merely catalog his game show records, endless syndicated markets, Guinness World Records for longest-running host, but will emphasize his pivot toward purpose-driven media. He has shown that retirement need not be an ending but a strategic transition into new forms of influence. While viewers may miss his laugh and his light-hearted teasing, they will find solace in knowing that his most significant acts of service lie ahead, far from the studio lights, but at the very heart of the human experience. In the weeks following his final on-air farewell, Pat Sajak settled into a new daily rhythm, one that juggled caregiving responsibilities with nascent media projects. Dawn often finds him in Leslie's sunlit living room, reading aloud from a stack of children's books in an effort to spark small moments of recognition. Their golden retriever, Charlie, pads in and curls at Leslie's feet, offering comfort when frustration surfaces. Friends say that Pat approaches these tender routines with the same warmth he once reserved for contestants. Unwavering patience, gentle humor, and a fierce determination to preserve what remains of her memory. Each morning's ritual has become a touchstone in a life reshaped by Alzheimer's. A testament to how love animates even the simplest acts of devotion. Meanwhile, recording for Letters from Home began in earnest, with Pat's home transformed into a cozy makeshift studio. Soft blankets drape over armchairs, stacks of handwritten notes lie within reach. A cup of Earl Grey steams on a nearby table. Producers say his first episode struck a powerful chord. Listeners submitted stories about parents who forgot their own children's names, spouses who rediscovered old photographs, and the bittersweet gift of hearing a familiar voice one more time. Pat's sign-off, "Keep on spinning through life's puzzles," resonated so strongly that listener downloads tripled in the first month. Though he no longer spun a physical wheel, his new platform enabled him to guide audiences through intangible rounds of hope, loss, and perseverance. In parallel, Pat threw himself into Alzheimer's advocacy with characteristic focus. He joined the board of a national research alliance, leveraging his visibility to lobby Congress for increased federal funding. At a hearing on Capitol Hill, he delivered an emotional statement. "My wife taught me the value of every letter, every word. Now I'm asking you to help us preserve the words of millions who will face this silent thief." Lawmakers responded with bipartisan support, committing an additional $300 million to cognitive health initiatives. Backstage, aides credited Pat's effective blend of personal narrative and clear policy proposals as the key to unlocking votes, illustrating how celebrity testimony can transform abstract budgets into human priorities. His growing role as an advocate also brought him to scientific symposiums, where he sat alongside neurologists, geriatric specialists, and data scientists. One researcher shared preliminary findings on a promising biomarker that might predict Alzheimer's progression years before symptoms appear. Pat, notebook in hand, asked probing questions about trial design, potential side effects, and pathways to making tests affordable. He later recruited biotech CEOs to fast-track pilot programs in underserved communities, insisting that breakthroughs benefit everyone, not just those in major cities. Industry insiders say his direct involvement accelerated partnerships that might otherwise have taken years to coalesce. At home, private victories balanced public battles. Leslie recognized Pat's voice during a video call to her sister in Florida. She smiled, momentarily tracing his face with a trembling finger. That fleeting clarity became a celebrated moment among caregivers, a reminder that love can unlock pockets of memory against seemingly insurmountable odds. Pat shared the anecdote at a support group meeting where dozens of spouses and adult children clutched tissues and nodded, recognizing their own glimmers of hope in his story. His presence in those circles, often as the only celebrity in the room, shifted dynamics. Caregivers went from isolated despair to communal strength, buoyed by the knowledge that someone of Pat's stature faced the same battles. Even as Pat's retirement pivoted into advocacy, Wheel of Fortune itself adapted. Executive producer Suzanne Preet convened a legacy committee to curate archival montages celebrating Pat's 4-decade tenure. They collected moments of unguarded laughter, off-camera banter, and Sajak's earliest NBC audition tapes. These tributes now air at the start of each episode, ensuring that viewers unfamiliar with his history can appreciate the foundation he laid. Contestants, too, join the homage. At the beginning of games, they share brief messages of thanks, sometimes recorded via smartphone, affirming the personal impact Sajak had on their lives. Producers report that these segments spike engagement metrics, proving that the bond he forged with audiences remains unbroken. Industry colleagues have taken note. Game show creators from around the world send Pat letters describing how they weave his principles, warmth, respect, and gentle humor into new formats. A Japanese adaptation of Wheel has incorporated segments where hosts deliver heartfelt viewer messages, a direct nod to Pat's post-retirement moves. At an international television summit in Cannes, Pat received a special honor for global impact on audience empathy, underscoring how his transition from host to caregiver advocate reverberated far beyond U.S. borders. As Pat looks ahead, his calendar reflects a blend of personal projects and family time. He plans to film remote sessions for a second season of Letters from Home, launch a digital fundraiser for memory care facilities in rural areas, and write a book on coping strategies for Alzheimer's caregivers. This fall, he'll lead a weekend retreat in Sedona, Arizona, combining guided mindfulness practices with group puzzle-solving workshops, a symbolic fusion of his continent's old passion for words and his commitment to healing. Attendees will stay at a lodge where every corridor is lined with letters, quotes on love, resilience, and the power of community. Through it all, Pat and Leslie remain inseparable. Their partnership, tested by medical crisis, public scrutiny, and the relentless onward spin of time, embodies a deeper legacy than game show records ever could. As the world continues to celebrate his achievements behind the wheel, Pat Sajak's true retirement journey unfolds in quiet living rooms, legislative chambers, and conference halls dedicated to finding a cure. His final, most profound act isn't a spin in prime time. It's the daily devotion that redefines what victory means when the stakes are the heart and mind of someone you love. As the first frost of winter softly kisses the morning grass, Pat Sajak's life takes on a rhythm that mirrors the changing season, steady, reflective, and guided by an unwavering purpose. With the autumn gala behind him and the second season of Letters from Home already greenlit, he finds himself navigating new terrain. Public speaking circuits, philanthropic boardrooms, and the tender complexity of home care. Yet, despite this whirlwind, Pat still carves out sunrise moments beside Leslie's bed, gently reminding her of yesterday's news, the name of her childhood pet, or the promise of a shared cup of tea. These quiet rituals stand in stark contrast to the bright studio lights and roar of applause that defined his former life. proof that love's gravity can both anchor and uplift the soul. This winter, Pat embarks on a cross-country tour for Alzheimer's Awareness Month, transforming stadiums into forums for education and hope. He shares the stage with neurologists who unveil breakthroughs in early detection scans and caregivers who testify to the emotional weight of memory loss. In each town, be it Omaha or Orlando, Pat opens with a heartfelt anecdote about Leslie's laughter echoing through their first Los Angeles apartment, then seamlessly shifts into a call for action: increased funding, accessible care centers, and the power of community support networks. Audiences greet him with standing ovations, not simply for nostalgia, but for the authenticity that now imbues his every word. Where once they applauded puzzle reveals and friendly banter, they now honor a man who has revealed his greatest puzzle and chosen to solve it through compassion. Back home in Los Angeles, the couple's garden takes on special significance, and Leslie spends late afternoons beside its rose bushes and citrus trees, planting bulbs that promise new blooms despite the season's chill. These moments have become metaphorical lifelines. A silent pact that life, even in its most fragile state, holds the promise of renewal. Friends who visit note that Leslie may not always recall the name of each flower, but she senses Pat's embrace, the warmth in his voice, and the shared memory of digging deep into earth long before Alzheimer's cast its shadow. In those hushed exchanges, the couple reminds themselves and observers that legacy is cultivated one tender moment at a time. Meanwhile, inside the boardroom of the Pat Sajak Alzheimer's Foundation, fervent planning is underway for the annual Spin for Memory Challenge. This interactive fundraiser mobilizes game, show fans, and caregivers alike. Participants form teams to tackle trivia pavilions, host community puzzle nights, and gather donations for local memory care units. Pat personally records the opening video, his voice ringing with the same playful energy that once coaxed letters into place, now tempered by urgency and genuine concern. He closes with a simple plea: spin your community's heart toward understanding. Last year's event raised $2.3 million. This year, projections estimate upwards of $5 million, enabling the foundation to underwrite mobile memory clinics in rural counties where services remain scarce. Behind the scenes, that voice now echoes through far-reaching initiatives. The Memory Aid app his foundation helped develop has expanded into an educational platform, offering interactive puzzle modules and guided narration from familiar television personalities. Early data shows significant improvements in patient engagement and caregiver confidence. Inspired by this success, tech partners are exploring voice assistant integrations, enabling users to ask questions aloud and receive personalized cognitive challenges in return. Pat regularly joins virtual brainstorming sessions, using language as a bridge between innovation and empathy, just as he once used banter to put contestants at ease. Back home, life with Leslie continues to pivot between public demands and private routines. Pat's days often begin before dawn, snatching quiet moments to review the day's itinerary while sipping ginger tea at her bedside. When medical emergencies arise, production crews on call pivot instantly, rescheduling podcast recordings or documentary shoots so he can be by her side. Their synergy, one of unwavering commitment and flexible planning, has become a model for other families balancing caregiving with professional pursuits. Care coordinators speak admiringly of his ability to negotiate hospital staff schedules with the same grace he once reserved for live television producers. As spring turns to summer, Pat's calendar fills with pilot programs testing new therapies. He visits a research lab where scientists are exploring light-based treatments to stimulate memory centers in the brain. Wearing a lab coat over his casual sweater, he listens intently as researchers describe challenges in trial recruitment and long-term funding. Afterwards, he hosts a live-streamed Q&A, translating complex neuroscience into accessible conversation for caregivers tuning in from across time zones. His approachable style, once honed by decades of hosting, now serves as an educational bridge, demystifying science while keeping human connection front and center. In quieter moments, Pat returns to the Wheel of Fortune's legacy. He consults with production teams developing a commemorative special honoring his tenure. The special will feature interviews with longtime colleagues, behind-the-scenes clips, and letters from fans explaining how his kindness shaped their lives. Yet Pat insists that any proceeds from the special funnel directly into Alzheimer's research grants. His decision underscores a profound shift. Once a master of game, show suspense. He now orchestrates philanthropic narratives that carry life-changing stakes far beyond the studio audience. Simultaneously, his podcast, Letters from Home, has grown into a network of spin-off series. One series pairs Pat with guest hosts, family members of patients living with other chronic illnesses, broadening the mission from Alzheimer's awareness to general caregiving support. Another segment, Puzzle Partners, invites specialists to co-host live puzzle-solving sessions, blending cognitive exercises with heartfelt conversation. Each episode reminds listeners that every mind, even when challenged by disease, can find moments of lucidity and connection. Downloads climb steadily, demonstrating that audiences crave authenticity and practical guidance just as much as entertainment. Perhaps most remarkable is how Pat and Leslie continue their own love story. They recently celebrated another milestone, his 75th birthday, surrounded by friends and foundation fellows in a garden illuminated by string lights. Despite the challenges of her memory loss, Leslie recognized the gathering and offered a shy smile as he cut the cake. Photographs captured her hand resting gently on his arm, a tableau of devotion that transcends the printed letters of any puzzle. Those images circulated widely on social media, inspiring donors and policymakers alike to view Alzheimer's less as an inevitable tragedy and more as a challenge to which humanity can respond with collective care. As evening settles on this chapter of his life, Pat often reflects on the wheel he once spun. In an unpublished essay, he writes, "Every spin represented possibilities, hopes, and smiles shared between strangers. Now every moment spent reading a name aloud, holding a hand, or listening to a memory rekindled is its own spin of fortune, intangible, yet infinitely precious." His retirement, once perceived as an end, has become the prologue to a profound second act, one defined not by lifeless letters on a board, but by living heartbeat moments that unite families, communities, and an entire nation in the pursuit of dignity and hope.